There are certainly many on the American and European left who don't like Russia because, on many cultural and religious issues, it's to the right of us. I have in mind, the LGBTQ ideology, which is destroying American youth and schools. Um, we have schools in America where 85% of the students identify as transgendered and that kind of thing. And I think post-communist Russia is much more of a mixed bag than a lot of people realize. I think Putin's been in power for way too long. The sad part is it's not clear. I mean, Putin was quite popular in the first 5 or 8 years of his presidency because the Russian 1990s, with the help of Western experts and economists, were so disastrous. And in a way, people started getting their bills again, and the country recovered some self-respect, and there were some intellectual and even some political freedoms. But the regime has certainly become more brutal and authoritarian. Um, but I fault Putin above all for not staying in power too long because he crowded out the possibility of the development of meaningful political life. You can have meaningful political life in a country without full-scale democracy, but I know many Russians, and I don't believe the Russian soul is essentially diseased. And to quote Charles de Gaulle, the future lasts a long time. So I don't share the Polish view of Russia, which I find a bit hysterical, that all Russians are bad. And I remember Ryszard Legutko, the Polish writer, has written some good books. He wrote a very good book on totalitarian trends in free societies. The Demon in Democracy, but he reviewed Solzhenitsyn's Between Two Millstones, Volume 1, the account of his first 4 or 5 years in the West. And he said, well, Solzhenitsyn's an admirable man. There's much to admire, but I only have one problem with it. He loves Russia. Well, you can't blame Russia. Solzhenitsyn called for Russia to look inward and reject empire and reject lies and to rejuvenate the Orthodox tradition. And there are some, especially in the West, and some in Poland and elsewhere, who just think Russia is coextensive with pathology. I don't want to go that far.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Professor Mahoney. Who else would like to take the opportunity? Anka, okay. Typically, we would like to see the camera on so that Professor Mahoney can also see you.
That's right. I don't want to be speaking. Yeah, I see you. I see you through a little bit of a glass darkly, but I do see you.
A Pauline image.
And by the way, if I use that Pauline image to my students, I think about 80% of them would think I invented it. Anka?
Hey, can you turn on the mic? Okay, Anka? It's off.
Oh, I was speaking to myself. So hello, everyone, and I'm really glad to hear the professor. I have many questions for him. I, as always, forgot the name.
Professor Mahoney.
Okay.
Mahoney is an Irish name, except if we were in Ireland, if I were in, my ancestors are all Irish, but if we were in Ireland, it would be pronounced Mahoney.
Mahoney.
I've gone to Ireland a few times, and when I say I'm Daniel Mahoney, they say, no, you're Mahoney, but we don't talk that way in America. So anyway, you didn't need to know that. But
I was in Ireland, and I know that. Yes, I have two questions, but the first one, which is like more important for me, is when I captured you saying that there is no link between the theological feelings or sorts of, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to express this, and between the theological or spiritual maybe and the social and political, there is no link. I mean, you cannot subordinate to the social and political, but now I'm going to the Bible, and I know that we were especially in the Old Testament, we were taught that we have to subordinate to the great authority, which can be the king, which can be the prime minister, nowadays? And that was my first question.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between Christianity and Judaism. Judaism, well, by the way, kingship comes later. You know, when God sort of reluctantly gives Israel their kings, it's said that now they're like all the other nations. Maybe they weren't supposed to be like all the other nations. They were supposed to be a singular nation with this covenant or alliance with God. But no, I mean, Judaism is provides a fundamental
Sorry,
law.
sorry to interrupt, but there's the Old Testament, which is for all the Christians. I'm not sure. I'm speaking about some passages from the Old Testament, which is for Christians as well, where you have to subordinate
It's
to the.
Romans 13. The New Testament speaks about a mandatory sort of subordination of Christians under the Caesar. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
Romans 13.
but you know, but Acts 5 or 6 also says obey God rather than man. There's tension in the New Testament's account of the relationship of human beings to political authority. I do think Romans 13 is authoritative. I don't think I don't. I think the New Testament does not have a expressly political teaching in the sense of a developed one, but Romans 13 does suggest that we are obliged to obey the civil authorities, whose authority and legitimacy comes from God. On the other hand, I think this is at the root of Christian opposition to totalitarianism. There's some things we can't do. And again, to come back to the words of Peter in Acts, we can't obey man rather than God. We certainly can't accept the mixture of half science, mendacity, atheism, murder, tyranny that uh, made up 20th century totalitarianism. So I think one reason an author like Solzhenitsyn would say old fashioned autocracy did not pose a terrible spiritual challenge for Christians because it didn't ask us to sell our souls. It didn't ask us to commit out and out idolatry. It didn't ask it asked for obedience in a limited realm. But whenever political authority asks us to worship what cannot and should not be worshiped, when it asks us to live by systematic lies, when I quote Solzhenitsyn again from the Gulag Archipelago, when cruelty and betrayal and lies become forms of existence, I think we're obliged to say no. Now that's a question of prudence. How we say no is that open